Hi everybody, welcome back to my studio again. Stella here. For those of you who don't know me, hi, my name is Stella. I'm a multimedia artist. Everything that you see behind me is made and created by me. So today, as you may have gathered from the title, I'm going to talk about licensing art. So I joined the art licensing world about almost 9 months ago, so I am relatively new to it. The whole point of me making this video today is so that I can share with you my own personal first-person experience, so that if ever by chance you decide to join the art licensing world, this video will serve as a foundation, a basis for you to ask all the right questions and decide if this is the right thing for you or not. Some of the basics I'll be covering are, for instance, what to expect, such as workflow, art direction, standard contract terms, how you get paid, when do you get paid. So not in that order I just stated, but I will definitely talk about it. All right, let's get to it. So I have decided as I talk, I'm gonna make myself smaller so then you can look at this beautiful Eggnog Gnome that I have created for my licensing agency. And this is specifically for holiday 2023. So just a side note, if you guys are interested to license this beautiful Eggnog Gnome, which you didn't know you needed, please DM me. I will introduce you to my licensing agent so you can actually purchase a license directly from her. All right, so that aside, what exactly is licensing art? In the simplest term, licensing art basically means you license your artwork, or you give the right of reproducing your artwork in the forms of, let's say, calendar, curtains, rugs, mat, anything, any consumer goods, to a licensing agency or directly to a wholesaler and retailer to sell and distribute. In other words, when you license your artwork to an agency, wholesaler, or retailer directly, you still own everything. You own the copyright of your original artworks that you licensed out. All the licensees can do is based upon the agreed and signed contract to sell, distribute, and produce the artwork in the forms and media stated in the contract for the duration that is stated in the contract. They cannot do anything beyond that. Now, let's talk about the standard contract terms. Number one, how long is the standard contract duration? For the most part, it's between 1 to 3 years. So during this time, however many artworks you end up licensing to them, they can reproduce them for however many times stated in the contract during that 1 to 3 years. After the contract ends, you have the right to renegotiate all the terms, and they will have to agree or disagree to it to be able to continue selling whichever artwork you guys decide to go forward with. The second feature that is in a standard contract term is what type of artworks, how many, and in what size will the licensee reproduce and sell it on your behalf, and in what medium. Is it wall art decor that you see in home decor industry? And is it printed on canvas, or are they using your artwork as some sort of packaging or label design? And what's the quantity that they will be reproducing at? And so all of these things will be stated. So the next big question is, how much do you get paid as a licensing artist, and when do you get paid? Big questions. I don't really have an exact precise answer because that all depends on the type of contract you sign and which industry do you sell it to. For instance, if you're mainly in the home decor wall art industry, how much you get paid will be very different than if you were designing for the gift card industry. As far as I know, gift card is about 1 to 7% depending on the type of contract you sign. Wall art, if you're creating stock art that people can just randomly buy into, we usually get paid on a quarterly basis, and then it can range from 5 to 10% per order placed, the order value placed. But if you're actually creating, let's say, custom made art for a specific client, then we're talking about up to 50% split with your agency, and then you will get paid on a monthly basis. Now, the catch is, when it comes to licensing, you really are designed into the future, which means your paycheck is in the future. It's not now money. Back in the day, there are advances that, well, they were, not are, were advances that your agency or even wholesaler retailer will pay you to start the artwork. Well, because of COVID, everybody conveniently find a reason not to pay artists any advances anymore, but it does not mean you cannot negotiate a reasonable advance for yourself. So that's totally up to you. We don't really create artworks for now. All these people, they come looking for licensed artwork to be put on, let's say, their sweaters, their mugs, or wall art for next year. So we're literally creating artwork one whole year ahead. I mean, just look at this Eggnog Gnome itself. This is literally for holiday 2023. This is not even for holiday 2022. Because when the manufacturing process is involved, you have to give it at least 6 full months, sometimes 9 months to reproduce, this particular product, in massive quantity. We're talking about anywhere from 3,000 pieces up to 10,000 pieces. If we're talking about selling it to Target, it can go from 10,000 pieces to 50,000 pieces. And if the sell-through percentage is really good, Target may come back and say, hey, we're gonna continue selling this for, let's say, holiday 2024. So you just keep on collecting that paycheck. And like I said, if this is actually custom created for, let's just use Target as an example. So, you will get 50% of the order value placed by Target with your agency, but you're not going to see that paycheck literally 6 to 9 months after you created that particular artwork. The catch obviously is how do you survive from now till, let's say, 9 months later. And a lot of things can happen within 9 months time. I haven't experienced this in the licensing world, so I hope it doesn't happen to me, but I have a feeling it will happen to everybody. But I have experiences in the fashion consumer world where I actually come from, which is supply chain situation. Let's say, I'm just gonna use Target again. Target, placed the order with the agency, everyone's so happy, but then you didn't get the money, and so your agent contacted Target and said, what's going on? And next thing they know, Target actually canceled the order because, who knows, maybe this particular quarter they didn't perform too well, or maybe the factories overseas are telling them that, oh, I'm sorry, we're so jam-packed with so many back orders, we're not gonna be able to get to your order until much later. When that happens, Target doesn't want to risk it, they want their money back, so they literally cancels the order. And unfortunately, that happens way too many times, and it's still happening. And so, this is one of those realities that you have to be mindful of. But I could tell you that, imagine, out of the 50 artworks you've created this year, I'm already up to almost like 70 artworks, in 6 months time. Let's say out of 70, you have 30 being licensed out. Out of 30, let's say you have 1 or 2 being canceled. But it doesn't mean that these 1 or 2 artworks are dead. It just means that they need to be circulated and hopefully purchased by different clients, which your agent can help you do that. Now imagine that monthly paycheck, even a quarterly paycheck of 30 artworks just coming in month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year. Now, is it worth your time? And now, does it compensate and balance out the fact that you don't even get advance now? Well, in my book, yes it does. That's why I'm doing it. But it's up to you. You have to decide. Now, let's talk about the workflow. So how much work will you get as a licensing artist? For me, so far with my agency, my workflow is controlled by me. I mean, I do have some craziness from time to time, but so far so good. I would literally contact my agent via email or phone call and ask her for projects. And during those project times, it's usually I space it 2 to 3 weeks where I would just devote myself to my agent's projects. After that, I would take 1 week off working on, let's say, other fashion projects, or I just, do my own projects for, let's say, upcoming shows or art fair. So make sure whichever agency you end up signing with, you let them understand what your workflow is, and you also need to evaluate if they are open to having this discussion and work with your schedule. If they're more about, you listen to us, then you kind of need to think about if this is the right agency for you. If you work directly with the wholesaler and retailer, I mean, then it's even easier in the sense that you decide how many projects you're willing to take on. Most of the time, they only come to you with one, possibly two projects that may have very tight deadlines. Let's say, one wants you to work on a packaging design that they can license out, for the next year or two. So you started on that, all of a sudden they say, can you add a color variation? So now that becomes two different projects. So I will assume you as a professional artist, you will know exactly how to schedule your life around that. And once you finish these two projects, you can decide to take on more or you can take a break. So really the workflow really depends on how you organize your work schedule as a professional artist. And we all know this, as a professional artist who is pretty much being chased by deadline day in and day out, always under promise and over deliver. For each project that I get from my agent, I usually give them 3 to 7 days to receive my artwork if it's custom created for a particular client. I usually will find that delivery time based on the complexity of the project that I receive. Like for instance, is this one single image or a pair of images, and is this a full composition, meaning that there's the background, there's the subject, full color, or is it just black and white? These are all the things that a good agent will describe and negotiate and work with you to make it work, because the last thing they want is to rush you to come up with a subpar artwork just to meet the deadline, because then they can't really sell it, because the client's not stupid. They see it, the quality is not there, they can see that you rushed this through. There's a lose-lose situation for everybody. When you work with a licensee directly, you need to be your own agent. You need to ask these questions to make sure that your delivery time, is achievable for you. Like, what are we talking? How many pieces are we talking about? Are you expecting for me to make a pair? Are we talking about full composition, full colors? What is this? So you have to be your own agent to ask that. Another tip is always expect to have to do revisions. If you're really good at what you do, I would assume 70-80% of what you created will get passed green light in one shot, but there's always that 30-20% where your agent or your client will come back directly and say, can we just change this stuff, and can you just fix that or revise this? Do not ever take that personally. It's not because they don't like what you do or they think what you made is a mistake. It's because they have to consider, at the end of the day, this is gonna be, let's say, made into a rug or a wall art or a packaging paper. So they have to think through what the consumers will see from their own point of view, and make sure everything is as perfect as possible so that the sellability is 100% on their side. Now, since we're talking about projects, I also would like to talk about art directions. So if you work with an agency or even directly with a client, retailer, wholesaler, not everyone will give you art direction. It's kind of funny. It's like 50% of them, they know exactly what they're looking for. They will give you art direction to the death. And depending on what type of artist you are, sometimes that's extremely helpful, because they literally just tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is what I want. So you just go down the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is what I give you, and you're done, you move on. But then the other 50% of clients, they just don't tell you what they're looking for, and it could be because they don't really know what you're capable of, or they don't have that mental image yet, or it could also be because they're asking for an abstract work, and you can't really give art direction on abstract other than, okay, maybe the color just a little bit lighter versus darker. It's a bit hard to give direction to abstract versus the figurative. But that being said, as an artist, I have learned that the best way to work with both type of clients is that you have to do your own homework. If the client is the one who will give you art direction, most of the time they'll give you some sort of inspiration board or trend report, and that's when you need to have a very frank communication with them. Ask them all the questions that you can think of so that you both kind of meet in the middle, and then you create exactly what they're looking for. If you end up working with someone who can't even give you a trend direction, but most of these people talking feelings, they want something that makes you feel like some like you're being odd when you see this word, or they're looking for something that's more moody. based on the type of adjectives they use, you kind of have to learn how to gauge it and figure out what they want. Like for instance, you know, I get a lot like, oh Stella, we want something like, we want a head, but then we don't, you know, want the eyes that's kind of scary looking at you directly, like something moody, you know. And because we're gonna put this, let's say, in the lobby area, in a super posh gold gilded, I don't know, I'm making this up, hotel lobby. I mean, the first thing I would do is like, okay, what color actually would match that wall? Gold gilded, probably something grayish, bluish, and that's kind of moody anyways. That's how you pick up what they're saying. You start throwing back, oh, do you mean this versus that? And then, you know, listen to them say yes or no. You have to guide them a little bit so that they can give you more information, so you're not wasting their time, your time, creating something that they don't even want. So why do this? Why license out your artworks? There are many reasons out there, but I'm gonna give you my top list. So the very first thing is, this is actually a tremendous passive income and repeat. I say that again, let me repeat what I just said. This is a repeat passive income that you're literally making money for the future. So when you get old, let's say God forbid something happened to your wrist or whatever, you just can't paint or draw anymore, this income is still going to come in based on the contract terms that you sign of artworks, let's say you created 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I'm not even making this up. So the second reason as to why you should try licensing art was given to me by my art mentor, which I totally didn't get back in the day. But once I started doing licensing art, I realized, you know what, she has a point. She totally has a point, which is licensing art forces you to be versatile in terms of how you paint, the type of techniques you end up developing. I'm even working with color palettes that I will never touch in my life before I started this whole journey. For instance, I'm not a red person, I'm more of a magenta person, but ever since I started doing licensing, for instance, this gnome, this is a very typical Americana, you know, art symbol, the garden gnome or the Christmas gnome with eggnog. I have no choice but to learn how to paint snow and reds and Santa Claus, beer, fluffiness. Never done that before, because why would I do that for galleries? I mean, that's not what they're looking for. But because I say yes to this project, I had to learn, you know, literally to figure out, how do I paint that? I wanted to use magenta really badly, but then my agent basically forbid me because she was very clear. Magenta only works in the fashion world where I used to work. It does not work in the home goods because it's so freaking jarring compared to the more subdued reds that I'm currently using for this gnome. And don't ever give me those crazy blues with too much yellow in it. You're gonna tone it down, has a bit more of a grayish blue because it sits better in anybody's home as a rug, as a wall art, and it works for the Christmas gnome. I wouldn't know any of this if I have never taken on this licensing journey. So yeah, if you are one of these artists who are not afraid to try new things, who are very versatile, and who wants to kind of push the way you work a little bit outside of your comfort zone, definitely do it. One last thing I will share is that I actually do find myself taking some of the techniques I've developed while painting, let's say the Christmas gnome or any other licensing artworks, back into my gallery art, back into my video art, back into my NFT art. And so it really feeds, you know, it's a cyclical thing. You'll find art techniques feeding to your licensing art and vice versa. And then together you grow as an artist. So what's wrong with that? And the last reason why you should do licensing art, I think to me it's the most important reason, but you know, a lot of people would debate me on that, but just hear me out, is that you learn consumer psychology. I don't think as a creative person we pay enough attention to that. Because of my fashion background, I ended up learning it on the fashion design side. But even when I come back into the art world and started doing licensing, there are times when I still feel like I don't really know why people buy into the type of art that they buy into, and I don't really know why they put certain artwork in certain room and not the others. These are all human psychology that you need to understand fully if you want to be a successful working artist who, you know, have really consistent and great sales. A lot of times we artists, we just want to do what we want to do, and then we create this masterpiece that we absolutely love, and next thing you know, just sits in your attic and in your basement for the rest of your life. No one wants to buy it, even though when you show it in a gallery, everybody tells you how beautiful it is. Why is that? Because we don't understand the human psychology that drives that purchasing behavior. Like for instance, when they look at an artwork, what exactly are they looking at? They're not looking at, oh, look at this fine brushstroke. Oh, look at this gorgeous, you know, color blending technique the artist is using on the nose. They don't look for things like that because their eyes are not trained like our eyes. We are the maker, they are the buyer. They may be looking for something that would decorate their kitchen, but they don't need a huge painting that won't even sit well in the kitchen. Or maybe the color doesn't fit with their kitchen. They might be looking for something that will calm their mind, still their mind, versus making them look kind of wary. Like for instance, you know, I know a lot of figurative paintings, they literally show the faces of the subject facing the audience, and a lot of times that makes people nervous whether the person is aware of it or not. And this is a real psychological fact now, and that's one of the reasons why if you look at a lot of amazing fine artists, when they get into licensing, they still paint faces, but their face is no longer facing, you know, the viewer directly, full frontal. In fact, they will subtly shift the angle of the face so the eyes literally look away from the viewer, so the viewers don't feel nervous. When I was at the other art fair in Brooklyn 3 weeks ago, I literally had this young woman coming to me and said, I love this art print of yours. I love everything about it, but I'm a little bit superstitious. The eye scares me. Literally, she used the word, the eye scares me. And the eye was not exactly looking at her directly, but close enough. And that was when I realized, wow, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. But yeah, when you do licensing work, you will hear feedbacks. There's that instant feedbacks, you know, from your licensee or your agent that tells you exactly what people are looking for. And these are extremely valuable sales data that for the most part we artists don't really get. And I definitely do believe that knowledge is power. The more feedback we can get, the better. So lastly, let's talk about who will be good for licensing art. Honestly, any artist who has that curiosity, who's versatile, who wants to try new things, and who loves, you know, creating some sort of passive income, then licensing art is for you. But if you don't like to be told how to paint, you're not interested to paint all sorts of different subjects, you're only interested to focus on this one single area of work, and you have a problem taking directions, you don't like to do too many revisions, this is not for you. Don't do it, and that's totally fine. You know, there are so many different types of art out there that you can try besides licensing art. If you have any questions or you would like to share your thoughts with me, just leave a comment below. I love to get to know who you are and say hi. Alright guys, thank you so much, and I will see you at my next video. Ciao!